Okay, great. Well, first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the folks here in the AMTSO community. I want to thank you guys for this time to kind of share with you a little bit about Absolute and what we're doing in the security endpoint space that will benefit this community. So for my session today, let me click into here. Let me see if I can actually move this. Here we go. Okay. All right, a key outcome of what Absolute does, especially around the secure endpoint service that we provide to about 17,000 enterprise clients, over about 15 million active devices worldwide, is that we have incredible insights and we produce a quarterly report into the state of endpoint risk and security. And then also want to touch a little bit about what is the application persistence, the self-healing technology that we are serving the ISP community, security endpoint software community, that I think will be a very powerful potential service and collaboration for, again, the AMSO community here. Okay. All right. So for many of you that may not be familiar with Absolute, like I was when I joined last year around this time, a little bit of the company that's relevant for our conversation today. I'm not a big fan of giving you guys 10 slides of who we are, but from the relevance of what we're going to touch on today is Absolute has served the device and endpoint security space for over 30 years. Since 2005, roughly a little less than 20 years now, our technology has been embedded in the firmware of every shipped laptops, PCs worldwide. That's approximately 500 million devices in the wild. This is possible due to the partnership we have, a unique relationship we have with the top 28 device OEM manufacturers like HP, Dell, Lenovo, and so on. And they provide us the ability to be in the BIOS with that technology to gather key telemetry, curate incredible insights of these devices and applications on them in the production environment. We provide these incredible insights on a quarterly state of the endpoint risks and security reports. I'll share some key highlights from our recent report with you today. All right. All right, let's start off with a closer look at some geolocation insights we've gathered. From January this year through May, we've seen roughly 17% increase in number of enterprise device locations. Now, what does this mean? If you look back to before the pandemic, most employees worked at an office majority of the time and traveled for business. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic, majority of the workers were working from home and not traveling for work too much. Now we're seeing the true pivot to what everyone's calling the work from anywhere shift. At home, at office, many other locations, increasing the risk based on the numerous sites employees are working from. Okay. Now, how heavily are the work devices being used? As you can see, 20% of enterprise workers are using devices more than 8 hours per day. And around 70% are moderate or heavily using the devices daily. When you compare the use over the past few years, we see that usage jumped from 20% pre-pandemic to 31% during 2020 at the height of COVID, and now back to pre-pandemic usage levels. Well, that's the good news, right? To see enterprise workers are bouncing back to more of a work-life balance similar to a pre-pandemic level. Now, knowing that workers are using their devices at more locations and still working longer hours, what security risk trends are we seeing? All right, starting off with a closer look at Windows 10 devices, we're seeing 2 out of 3 devices are on OS versions 2 or more behind. And additionally, on average, Windows 10 devices are 77 days or 2.5 months out of date with current patches. These issues create higher levels of vulnerabilities. Now, when we talk to enterprise companies and clients, They share that patching and keeping up with OSs can be challenging in normal circumstances, but has become a major issue now that most of the employees are off network and more mobile. This is due to many of the tools, processes used by IT that were designed and planned for on-network devices. With the workforce mobility on the rise, keeping up with patching and OS upgrades have become more important, challenging than ever before. Now, few other risk trends we're seeing on enterprise devices. 16% of the enterprise devices are unencrypted, seeing a rise in users intentionally or accidentally turning off encryption. And also 13% of enterprise devices are not connected to the corporate domain, making it hard, almost impossible for IT to keep up with security updates for these devices. Another security risk we track is sensitive data on enterprise devices. We're seeing 77% of enterprise devices have sensitive data stored locally. That's a lot of devices. Comparing to same time last year, we're seeing a growth of about 4%. Now, what magnifies, compounds the risk are that 7% of these devices are not connected to corporate domains, and 20%, one out of every five, devices are not encrypted. This is one of the most revealing and concerning insights we're seeing, keeping in mind, we know how much data hygiene is a challenge, but coupled with not encrypting the device or not connecting to a corporate domain to ensure security updates creates a much higher risk profile. Last insight I'll share today is on security application health on these enterprise devices. Now, you're seeing how so many factors impact application health, effectiveness, compliance. We touched on a few already: users turning off security controls, apps behind versioning, dependence on services that apps need to run properly, malicious actors, and on and on and on. We look at how app health changes over time in a real world environment with different user profiles, device configuration, geographies, etc. We looked at 5 different applications in 3 different categories: UEM, VPN, EPP, over about 14 days, and we analyzed over 3 billion records of these devices, these applications health. On the left-hand side, we're looking at devices without any auto remediation of the apps, similar to a normal device setup. And on the right-hand side, these devices have automated remediation, self-healing for the apps turned on, called application persistence from AMTSO. Now, as you can see, over that 14 period that we analyzed the 3.1 billion records, on the left-hand side, we're seeing quite a bit of low health scores and a lot of fluctuation. On the right-hand side, we see consistently high application health, a little to no fluctuation, and at about 90 to 100% health scores compared to left-hand side as low as 27. Final point to note here is these 5 apps are some of the top industry security brands used for device management and security by many of the enterprises. And the last line of defense for many organizations, if these tools are not working properly, their device, network, and worst case scenario, in many cases, the entire enterprise are at risk. Okay. What is the application persistence from absolute technology that's automatically healing, remediating these security apps, resulting in higher health scores? As I mentioned earlier, over the past 20 years, Absolute has been working with about 28 of these OEM partners. We're embedding our technology, persistence technology, in the BIOS, the unflashable portion, in the factory and shipped to the customer. The persistence agent acts like a Dixie driver and not addresses a vault via the OS. And is the key underpinning technology that enables resilience, kind of the auto healing, of the ISV software and ability to gather telemetry of the devices and application and insights for these devices and apps in the wild. Okay. Okay, so now how does this work for enterprises? Okay. Absolute precision technology, as we mentioned, is embedded in the firmware in the factory by the OEMs. Clients will purchase these devices and subscribe to Absolute service, and they can pick from one of 70 ISV apps that's being enabled with persistence. Okay. Now, what we've done is we've created application persistence as a service, so ISVs can actually take advantage of this and bundle it with a small agent into their installer, not having to change their code, so they can actually activate the technology to keep track of and remediate and heal the application automatically every time their clients download their application. The best part of this APAS is that the end client of the ISV security product vendors do not have to buy Absolute subscription service. It's purely through the application from the ISV that we've been able to provide this persistence capability. Now, we've taken this concept, this service, and seen tremendous reaction, and we started to talk to testing labs. Are there some potential better together story, some sharing of our technology and insights with the test labs? We came up with two ideas that we're currently working with a handful of test labs today, and we're exploring how we can create potentially new or maybe extend existing test lab testing and certification services with the ability to do security application resilience check. Is it healing itself? Is it tamper-proof? And then the easy button is obviously sharing the absolute endpoint risk data insights to enhance many of the test lab reports and analysis they deliver every day. And let me go to why it matters. I think this is very important, right? To wrap it up, I've heard from security vendors, our APAS application persistence as a service partners on the value of our app persistence platform, something that we've launched just December based on the 20 years of success of persisting joint customer application. And beyond enabling the auto self-healing of their application, what the security vendors have shared is the access to the rich app health insights that they haven't seen before of how the application work and maybe not perform so well in the wild on actual production and customer devices is the true value and benefit to ISVs. And then ultimately the value to their end client is the fact that the end clients get a higher return on investment for the security spend because the application doesn't go down. The idea here is I'm working with testing labs. How do we help and extend this platform to collaborate with some of the partners on this in this community from a win-win perspective, so we can share the insights, share the data, and potentially help strengthen a lot of the testing methodology and services. That is all I have today. Any questions, feedback, thoughts?